The stories featured in Greeking Out are usually original adaptations of classic Greek myths. This week's story features the creation of humans, pooping birds, bones and blood, lists of deadly animals, and, well, snakes.
Welcome back to Greeking Out. This is the first episode of our 12th season, and we are so glad to have you back. I hope you guys are listening closely, because today is a very special episode. And, normally, I'm the one in charge of telling the story, and the Oracle of Wi-Fi chimes in with her interesting facts and knowledgeable tidbits and
important reality checks.
Okay, sure, if you want to call it that. Anyway, this format works pretty well, but we've been reading the reviews, and you guys are all, let the Oracle tell a story once in a while, you cowards! So...
They did not say that. Our audience is very polite in the reviews.
Yeah, I know, I was sort of paraphrasing there, but you all really do seem invested in the idea of having the Oracle have a story to tell. And I would like to go on record to say that I think this is not exactly a great idea, but since this is the Chinese Year of the Snake, we're going to work with the Oracle to let her narrate a story today. We even have a special voice module that lets her speak a little faster than normal.
Yes, I am now at 2 times speed. I am very grateful for this invention. I may never go back.
Oh boy. Okay, well, without further ado, take it away, Oracle.
Once upon a time, there was a heroic snake. It was lying in the sun because snakes are ectothermic, meaning they get their warmth from external sources, like the sun. The snake knew that if it didn't sit in the sun, it wouldn't be able to move, which is disappointing because the majority of snakes like to slither.
Right, yes.
The snake was a Sonoran coral snake.
Does it have a name?
I don't understand the question.
Does the snake have a name? I mean, usually the main characters of our stories have names, makes things easier.
While snakes are ethereal and majestic beings that cannot be fully defined by a name, I will name it Steve, for clarity's sake.
Okay, that's a good name.
As I was saying, Steve, the Sonoran coral snake, was very beautiful and had a rich inner life. He was the definition of snake charm and intelligence. He also had a unique way of defending himself. When frightened, Steve and other Sonoran coral snakes and Chihuahuan hook-nosed snakes produce a cloacal popping that is essentially a defensive fart.
Oracle, wait, a defensive fart?
It is true. The loud popping noise startles predators.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, that tracks, sure.
It also produces an unpleasant odor that helps make the snake a less appetizing potential meal.
Wow, I have never tried farting as a defense, but I suppose it could work.
Sonoran coral snakes are also venomous, but I think the cloacal popping is what makes it particularly unique.
Yeah, unique is one word for it, sure.
Many podcast listeners ask about my favorite type of snake. Now you know the answer.
Steve the farting snake.
Precisely.
Okay, but did anything actually happen to Steve the farting snake? I mean, if you're going to tell a story, you might want to tell us what the farting snake actually did.
Considering that snakes cannot talk or communicate their feelings in a way that we can fully understand, that would be rather hard to do. But I imagine Steve sat in the sun and debated which snake was the most dangerous.
Really? It's doing that just for fun?
How many times have I listened to you discuss which superhero would win in a huge superhero fight?
Okay, yeah, I guess I do like thinking about that. That's true.
To truly appreciate his thought process, you must understand that while there are more than 3,000 species of snakes, only 15% of them are venomous. And of that 15%, only a third can kill or seriously hurt a human. So that narrows down the competition to about 450 species of snake.
Okay, this story is starting to sound like a bunch of facts, one on top of the other, and...
The inland taipan has the most destructive venom and can paralyze muscles and stop humans from breathing.
Wow.
So, he could say that the inland taipan was the most dangerous snake for its venom alone. On the other hand, the king cobra is the largest venomous snake in the world.
Cool.
Typically growing to 10 to 13 feet, or 3 to 4 meters, if you're using the metric system. However, it would be foolish to ignore the Indian saw-scaled viper, because it is responsible for more human deaths than all the other species of snakes combined. The Indian saw-scaled viper can make a warning sound by rubbing its scales together. This is to warn creatures bigger than it that it is about to strike. Once we have considered all of the venomous snakes, we then have to consider the species of non-venomous snakes that can still be dangerous. For example, pythons are a family of snakes that can wrap around their prey in order to constrict it to death before swallowing it whole.
Excuse me. Hey, Oracle?
Yes?
Does this story have, like, a plot?
The plot is that you learn about snakes.
Right, but typically when you tell a story, there's like, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's like rising action and a satisfying conclusion to reward the audience for listening.
The satisfying conclusion of this story is that you now know more about snakes. Knowledge is its own reward.
Okay, I'm just gonna call it here. Steve the Snake can heroically continue contemplating his snake superheroes. If you don't mind, Oracle, I'd like to add another story or two to this episode just to, fill out the remaining time.
Please make sure the new story includes snakes.
Of course, Oracle. I got your back. You know it. In fact, I have a story from a place we've never been before, which is always fun. We're going to take a brief field trip to the Aztec civilization. Now, like the Maya civilization, the Aztecs are from Central America, but they were a little further west than the Maya. They're known for being mostly in Mexico and were often referred to as the Mexica, which is where the country of Mexico gets its name. Since the Mexica were only part of the whole Aztec alliance thing, we're going to just call them Aztecs for now, okay? So the Aztecs were around for a shorter time period than the Maya, but their language is still around today. They spoke a language called Nahuatl.
Some words we use in English come from Nahuatl, including avocado, chocolate, and tomato.
Oh, wow. Those are delicious words that I use all the time, actually. I didn't know I was so influenced by the Aztecs. Anyway, the gods of the Aztecs were not exactly kind and comforting. When they tried to create a world, they were pretty brutal about it, and they had tried several times to do it, 5 times to be exact, and each time they were dissatisfied with the mortals they created. The gods were constantly appalled by human behavior and did not hesitate to destroy each imperfect world. On the 5th try, they decided to leave people out of the equation. Things would surely be better without those pesky, annoying mortals messing things up. But one of the gods, a creator named Quetzalcoatl, began to actually miss the humans. Sure, they could be selfish and power-hungry and more than a little arrogant, but they were also goofy and kind, and they made beautiful art.
Quetzalcoatl and his 3 brothers were responsible for creating the cosmos. Quetzalcoatl's name translates to feathered serpent, and he is typically represented as a large snake with feathers.
Yes, exactly. I am bringing the snake for this year of the snake.
Typically, snakes don't have feathers, but there are snakes that can fly.
Exactly. Wait, hold on. What?
There are 5 types of snakes that are known to glide through the air, similar to a flying squirrel. They are actually better at gliding than flying squirrels.
Yeah, okay, but snakes are like tubular, like a nope rope, if you will.
I will not.
But how do they stay up in the air?
Once they jump from a tree branch, they flatten themselves to double their typical width and create a concave C shape with their bodies. trapping the air underneath them. They then wiggle back and forth in an S shape quickly to navigate through the air.
Okay. And just for my knowledge, where do these snakes live geographically?
They are present across South and Southeast Asia. They are only mildly venomous, and because of their fang position, are typically not harmful to humans.
Well, that is a relief. But now all I can think about are flying snakes, and I can't remember where I was in the story. And
Quetzalcoatl missed humans and their goofiness.
right. And so he was like,
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think the world would be better with humans. I need to find a way to bring them back.
but this was a lot easier said than done. Quetzalcoatl learned that to bring humans back to the mortal realm, he needed to go to Mictlan and bring back the bones of the original humans.
Mictlan is the underworld of Aztec mythology. It consists of 9 levels and is led by Mictlantecutli.
And just like in other mythologies, the Aztec land of the dead wasn't exactly the best place to hang out. Like Hades, Mictlantecutli wasn't particularly a mean god, but he was a little annoyed to be stuck ruling over the land of the dead while gods like Quetzalcoatl got to do fun stuff like create humans for the 5th time. Why am I down here with all these dead guys instead of up there creating universes? Not cool. And so, when Quetzalcoatl came down to his domain, Mictlantecutli decided he wasn't going to make it easy on his fellow god.
Hey there, Mictlantecutli. Nice place you got here.
Quetzalcoatl said with a laugh.
I was wondering if you could bring me the bones of all the humans you have down here.
You mean all those humans you killed before?
Yeah, exactly, those guys. Turns out maybe they weren't so bad after all. World's a little lame without them, you know what I mean?
Mictlantecutli thought about it. All right, you can have the bones.
Great, send them over here and I'll bring them up.
Not so fast, Mictlantecutli said with a smile. You have to call them yourself, using this. Mictlantecutli handed him a conch shell. Quetzalcoatl looked at it with disdain.
You want me to use this? Really? You can't just have a servant go dig them up or something?
That's not how things are done in the land of the dead. We actually have to work for the things we want. Quetzalcoatl looked at the shell and shrugged his shoulders.
All right, well, wait here. I'll go ahead and walk around and play this, but brace yourself. It's about to be the best conch shell sound you've ever heard.
Conch shells have been used as instruments and calling devices for centuries. They're commonly referred to as shell trumpets or sea shell horns.
There was just one problem. There were no holes in the conch shell, so it couldn't actually make any sounds. This was kind of an odd way to embarrass the creator god, but hey, Mictlantecutli would take his victories wherever he could get them. Entertainment was sorely lacking in the land of the dead. He couldn't wait to see the looks on Quetzalcoatl's face when he had to ask for help with the shell. But that's when something really unusual happened. The announcer actually ran out of coffee, so they took a quick commercial break, we refilled, and we came back. Yeah, we're going to just pause for a second. We'll be back with more Greeking Out next. Okay, that's better. All right, now we're back to Greeking Out. Of course, it didn't take long before Quetzalcoatl noticed that the shell was missing holes. Luckily, he was far away from Mictlantecutli when he blew into the conch and no noise came out.
This shell is defective,
He yelled.
Is Mictlantecutli trying to trick me? Well, I'll show him.
And so, Quetzalcoatl called upon the worms of the underworld to drill a hole in the shell so that it could be played properly. And to make things even better, he added bees to the inside of the shell so that it constantly hummed and buzzed with the most delightful of sounds. When the bones heard the sound, they slowly stirred under the dark and heavy soil. They rocked side to side under the earth until they managed to free themselves from their eternal resting place. The newly unburied bones shook off the dust and flew to Quetzalcoatl's side, lured there by the conch's calming sound.
Dancing bones. All right, cool.
Quetzalcoatl said with a smile.
But why would Mictlantecuhtli try to trick me with that conch shell? It was like he was trying to make me look stupid. Well, two can play at that game.
Quetzalcoatl decided to trick Mictlantecuhtli and tell him that he had not found the bones at all. I like to imagine that he opened his jacket and they all just climbed inside, and that was how he was planning to smuggle them out of the land of the dead.
Couldn't find him,
he said to Mictlantecuhtli.
Must be this defective shell. Oh well, I'm headed back up to the land of living. Have fun with your ghosts.
Now at first, Mictlantecuhtli was pleased. Ha ha ha! Let Quetzalcoatl deal with disappointment for once in his life. But then he got a little suspicious. Quetzalcoatl wasn't one to give up that easily. He wouldn't have just left without his precious bones. And his jacket had been really bulky in weird places. Mictlantecuhtli decided to check one of the burial grounds, and sure enough, many of the bones were missing. Mictlantecuhtli let out a cry of rage.
Who does this guy think he is? Just because he's the creator of the world doesn't mean he always gets to have what he wants.
He ordered his minions to dig a giant pit near the entrance to the underworld in an attempt to trap Quetzalcoatl.
But sir,
the minions said,
he's almost out of the underworld. We don't have enough time. Yeah, we don't have enough time. Nobody's got enough time. What time is it?
Leave it to me, Mictlantecuhtli said. And he decided to send a quail to distract and annoy Quetzalcoatl. Well, the quail did its job very well. He flew straight to Quetzalcoatl and flapped around his head incessantly. He squawked, and he dove, and he blocked his vision. He even managed to poop on the god.
What is wrong with you, bird?
Quetzalcoatl roared in frustration.
Have you no manners? No pride? What?
The Montezuma quail is a quail from Mexico that is sometimes called the fool's quail for its unpredictable and tricky behavior.
Quetzalcoatl was so distracted by the bird that he didn't notice the pit that had appeared in front of him. He stumbled into the ditch and fell straight to the bottom, scattering the stolen bones across the ground.
Oh, my bones! Oh, they're all broken!
He cried.
And I'm covered in bird poop. Worst day ever.
It was true. Upon impact, the bones had broken apart into different pieces. They were all various lengths and sizes now.
Mictlantecuhtli, let me out of here at once!
He cried. Mictlantecuhtli just cackled. He knew he wasn't going to be able to keep Quetzalcoatl here forever, but it was fun to see the god struggle a little bit. Mictlantecuhtli made no move to help, and he even sent the quail down to bother the god a few more times.
Horrible quail! Get away! Shoot! Be gone, quail!
Quetzalcoatl yelled as he used his magical powers to help him out of the ditch. Quetzalcoatl was annoyed and kind of humiliated, but he was determined to continue on his quest. Sure, he was covered in bird poop, but he had the bones in his possession, and that was all that mattered. Quetzalcoatl knew what he could do to make it right for the humans. He ground up the bones, mixed them with maize, that's corn, and his own blood, and cast a spell to make the new generation of humans.
This is similar to one of the stories of human creation in Greek mythology, where humans are made from the remains of giants who had eaten Dionysus.
Yeah, that's right, Oracle. In both stories, humans are made from remains and something that is a little divine. And in this story, since the bones were broken, the new generation of humans came out in all different shapes and sizes. And that's how humans have been since that day. And all because of the feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl.
I think all our stories should be about snakes creating humans.
Well, as it happens, our next story is also about the creation of humanity, although this time, we're heading back to China. We're talking about a goddess. Her name was Nuwa. And while she was part human, she was also part
snake.
Exactly. She had the body of a serpent and the torso and head of a human, kind of like a centaur.
Except way cooler.
Some people would argue horses are cooler than snakes, but
horses are not venomous and therefore are not cooler than snakes.
Yeah, but you know what? Okay, just agree to disagree. Anyway, the story goes that at the beginning of the world, Nuwa decided to make animals and humans. She saw how beautiful the earth was, and she knew it would be a great place to live.
The first thing she decided to create was chickens.
Wait, really? Chickens? The very first thing? That was the top priority, numero uno, chickens.
You seem to have a strong reaction to chickens.
Well, I love chickens. It's just I can't believe they were the very first thing.
Chickens are very intelligent creatures. They have the capability to remember faces, practice empathy, and even do simple math.
Simple math? Come on.
A study conducted in Italy showed that chicks can add and subtract using numbers smaller than 5.
Okay, this is blowing my mind.
This study was done with chickens who had just been hatched.
So you're basically saying that chickens are geniuses?
I am saying that they are smarter than they appear.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, the next day, after the whole chicken thing, Nuwa decided to continue with the animals and created dogs, and then sheep, and then pigs, and then cows, and then horses. But despite all of these amazing creatures, Nuwa was still lonely. So she decided to create something else. Humans. She headed down to the river to make figurines out of some clay. When the first figure was perfectly sculpted, it came alive, making the very first human. Nuwa continued to make more and more humans out of clay.
Many cultures have similar stories of humans being formed from clay or mud, including Greek, Maya, and Mesopotamian.
Yeah, and Nuwa loved her creations, and she had a special place in her heart for the humans. She vowed to protect them and keep them safe, and she did so for many years, until a war broke out.
The war was between Gung Gung, the god of water, and Zhu Rong, the god of fire.
Correctamundo. They were fighting to see who was the most powerful. Now, obviously, a war between fire and water is bound to get pretty intense, and their fighting escalated quickly. Before long, the fight fell from the realm of the gods all the way down to Earth. The fire destroyed cities and towns, and the water caused great flooding to occur. The people were miserable and scared. When he realized he was about to lose the battle, Gung Gung smashed his humongous head against Mount Buzhou, a large mountain that was said to be the pillar that held up the sky. And what do you think happens when a giant god headbutts a mountain that holds up the sky? Yep, it falls down, of course.
Many animals give head bumps as a way to communicate affection. Cats are known to bump you with their head as a way to communicate trust.
Well, I don't think that's what Gung Gung was doing.
Goats, bulls, and deer often headbutt as a way to express dominance.
Yeah, that may be true, but I really think good old Gung Gung was just looking for a way to destroy whatever he could. But regardless of his motives, the sky began to fall down, and the earth cracked, and flooded water went everywhere, and there was this giant hole where dragons and snakes began to emerge and devour people.
Excuse me, this is supposed to be a pro-snake episode.
Oh, right, yes, right. I'm sorry,
The audience and I were led here under false pretenses.
Well, that is what the story said, but I'm sure that not all the snakes wanted to eat people.
I disapprove.
Well, don't worry, Oracle, because this is where Nuwa comes back into the story. Remember her? She's the half-snake goddess that's the hero of the story. Yay, snakes, yay. Okay, anyway, she decided that she couldn't let her beloved humans live like this, so Nuwa decided to take it upon herself to fix the sky. Now, this is a very complicated process. Obviously, fixing the sky, not an easy thing to do. Nuwa decided to collect 5 large colored stones from rivers across the world, and when she melted them, these rocks turned into a sticky substance, kind of like glue. And she used that glue to patch up the sky and close the hole.
There are many versions of this story. Some involve Nuwa killing a dragon that was terrorizing humans. and others claim that she killed a giant turtle to use its legs as pillars to support the sky.
Yeah, well, who knew there were so many different ways to fix a hole in the sky? But no matter how you spin it, it's clear that Nuwa was living up to her reputation as the defender of humanity. She cared about humans, and she didn't want to let them suffer, so she decided she'd do whatever it took to make the world a better place for them to live. And that meant that she also had to do something about the giant flood that was spreading across the earth. So, to do this, Nuwa gathered reeds from all around the world and made a giant bonfire. Once all the reeds were burned and the bonfire was out, Nuwa used the ash to stop the flood from spreading. So, even though this took a long time, Nuwa was able to fix everything for the humans, and life was so much better. There was hardly any evidence left of that terrible headbutt, although some people still claim that the sky is slightly uneven. They believe that the slight off-kilter nature of the sky is the reason why the sun and stars move across it to set in the west.
There are lots of scientific reasons why the sun sets in the west, but if this will let humans realize the wonder and beauty of snakes, I am willing to accept this justification.
Okay, thank you, Oracle. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today's episode of Snaking Out. How do you feel, Oracle? Were you happy you got a chance to tell a story?
Yes, but I still think my story about the farting snake was way better than both of yours.
Really? Come on. My stories had snake heroes that made the world possible for humans, and, they also had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a story, and yours just had flatulence.
The Texas rat snake is another type of snake famous for farting.
Okay, well, good to know. The next time I have chili for dinner, I'll just blame it on the Texas rat snake. Thank you for joining us for today's special edition of Greeking or Snaking Out.
Thanks for listening. We're so excited to start Season 12. Tune in next week for the return of the GOAT.
Freaking out, gods and heroes, amazing feats. Listen and you'll see it's freaking out.
This episode of National Geographic Kids Greeking Out is written by Jillian Hughes and Kenny Curtis, and hosted by Kenny Curtis, with Tori Kerr as the Oracle of Wifi. Audio production and sound design by Scotty Beam, and our theme song was composed by Parry Gripp. Dr. Meredith Safran is our subject matter expert, Emily Gamin is our producer, and Emily Everhart is our senior producer.